Amy loved her college years, varsity basketball, student leadership, lifelong friendships. But life got busy, and over time, she drifted away from her alma mater. Then, an email changed everything. A student, just like she once was, needed advice. It wasn't a donation ask. It wasn't a long-term commitment. Just a chance to help. Amy answered, suggesting a call. It took minutes, but for Jacqueline, it meant everything. A real connection. The advancement team saw Amy was engaged. They reached out, not for a gift, but to thank her, to invite her back into the community. Amy realized how much she missed being part of this world. She joined a panel. She met students. She felt the impact she could have. And when the time came, giving back wasn't a question. It felt like the next step. This is the power of Protopia. Not another alumni engagement platform. Not another fundraising tool. A smarter way to engage alumni where they are, creating connections that lead to real impact. See the ripple effect in action. Visit protopia.co today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for listening to Alumless for Friday, May 23rd, 2025. This is the More Alumni Engagement with Less edition. I'm Ryan Catherwood. I'm joined by my colleague, founder and CEO of CMAC, Chris Marshall. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, Ryan, how are you? Good. I love that new Protopia ad. That's a good one.
Right? Awesome background music. Good little story going on there.
Yep.
I like it too. Yep. Thanks for Max and the team there for sending that over so we could include it in the show. And on the show, we talk about engagement strategies and education and advancement. We're live today with our special guest, Pete Brumbaugh from MidAmerica Nazarene University. If you're tuning in, please let us know that you're listening in the comments. Say hello and what school that you represent. We'd be happy to answer your questions during the show. And if we can't get to them during the live show component, we'll answer it in the bonus segment. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the podcast edition of Alumless so that you can pick up that 30-minute bonus segment with each of our special guests. And if you're already listening to us by podcast, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. So Chris, good show today. We've got one of my favorite folks on the line here, Pete Brumbaugh, who's back in the green room hanging out. And we talk a lot about different types of institutions, but I have to say, it's fair to say that we spend less time talking about smaller size institutions, smaller size shops. I think it's probably a fair critique of Alumless that some of our special guests represent much bigger organizations. And so the small shops, the leaders in small shops that are listening to the show have to kind of take some of the advice that we have and sort of reframe it for their size institution. But what's your perspective on how smaller size alumni shops can really make a big impact?
Yeah, I've noticed this over the years is that you'll see great ideas coming out of the shops that we've had guests on the show that talk about their great ideas and some amazing institutions. But what I have also learned is that equally innovation and some really cool stuff is coming out of some small shops where they're forced to be innovative, right? You don't have a choice. You have to wear multiple hats. You have to just get work done and dig in and do whatever you can. So what I have seen, though, is innovation. Unfortunately, what you also see is there are times people get overwhelmed because they're just trying to do the work of what a full shop would do. And they get even more stretched too thin. And I've used this word 100 times on our podcast. Focus becomes even more important. What are we going to do? What are we going to focus on? And to get to the point where you understand simply that engagement does not always equal events. And if that's your mindset, a small shop, you're going to fail, right? You have to think about all holistic engagement in all kinds of ways and it not just be about events. That's the hardest thing to scale and maintain.
No doubt. Those are resource intensive initiatives. And when resources are tight, it means that there are some imperatives, right? With regards to how to weigh priorities, make decisions about strategies. How do you think about it, sort of a frame of thinking when resources are tight and you've got to weigh priorities?
Yeah. Right. You got to talk about this at one point. It used to be that when you hired an alumni professional, the skill set was event management, event planning, a little bit of volunteer, a little bit of communications, and it'd be great if they understood fundraising, right? And I think we flipped that model. We've done this before with clients where it's mostly community, a good chunk of volunteer management. You better understand fundraising, and event planning is the lowest on the list for me personally. So right. For me, it's factoring in communications in general, being in a digital space, of course, highly scalable, but going where they are specifically is social, right? We're not talking about mailing things to them or just emailing. Yes, you should do some of that. Mailing and emailing is important, or having a website, all important. But where they are is in the social space, right? They're on LinkedIn. You don't need to build a platform to do that. You can or hire a vendor to put a platform in place. You go to LinkedIn, they're going to be there, and having an active presence on the social channels, I think, is going to be where I would start. I mean, to me, that's the imperative. Well, one step, that's number one. 0 on that list would be you need good data. Right? We need to know where people are to get a hold of them in the first place.
Yeah, it's kind of meeting people where they are, where there are opportunities to scale. Yeah. Right. And I think these, you mentioned merging communications and thinking with a communications lens. And of course, that's, we'll bring out Pete because that's part of his role.
Matt Winston just jumped in and said, large or small, these are important topics for all shops. So Matt agrees with you 100%.
Well, we're honored to bring out our friend, Pete Brumbaugh. He's the Executive Director of University Communications and Alumni Engagement at MidAmerica Nazarene University, which is located in Olathe, Kansas, right? Did I say Olathe right?
Olathe.
See, this is why I ask.
Yeah.
Pronunciation is never my strong suit.
Worry about it.
I'm glad to have you out here. Great to have you on the show. Maybe we could start off just by talking a little bit, Pete, about sharing more about your role at MNU and how it's evolved, right? Because you have evolved to sort of go from alumni engagement. Yeah. And now.
Yeah. So I'm actually in August. I will have been at the university for 11 years. I actually started as the director of annual giving, which is a natural flow for a lot of alumni directors. About 5 years into my tenure, I added the alumni engagement section to my 2 full-time jobs. And then in July of 23, president asked me to take over the alumni or the university communications area. I dropped the annual giving section, but I begged to keep the alumni engagement because it's one of the things like I think Jay Dillon at Cal Berkeley likes to say it's not just my profession, it's my passion. And so anyway, at small institutions, we tend to wear a lot of hats, and my current role is like 2 full-time jobs. So I really need to manage my time really efficiently and wisely.
Well, let's talk a bit about that, Pete. How do you think
what's the team?
Okay, so you're looking at the team. It's me. I'm a 0.4 FTE. So I 60% of my time is dedicated to university communications, and 40% of my time is dedicated to alumni engagement. We'll talk about how I still get stuff done over here later on in the podcast, but we're one of 7 denominationally affiliated universities in the Nazarene network here in the United States. Like Ryan said, we're located in suburban Kansas City. And for a lot of people who wear a Garmin watch or have a Garmin device in their car or on their phone, this is the home of Garmin. And the CEO of Garmin is actually one of our alums. So they've literally put Olathe on the map. So kind of fun there.
And Pete, I think that there's a lot of people out there who have similar roles as you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that are there's a lot of small liberal arts schools. There's a ton of small independent schools in the K-12 space as well, where it's a one-person job or a very small team. So let's talk about sort of introducing priorities to your work, and how do you stay focused on the stuff that's important?
Yeah, it was always funny when I'd be listening to Alumless, and Chris would say, I was in a small shop and it was 4 people. And I'm like, oh, I would die for 4 people. So, and then you hear like University of Indiana is like, well, our staff of 175 people. And I'm just like, what would that be like? That kind of thing. But for us, really, I need to focus on quality over quantity. I want to do everything, but I know I can't. I would probably drive myself crazy if I tried to capture all the opportunities within my grasp. And so what I do is I work collaboratively with my alumni council to set a quarterly agenda, and then we work from there. We're really focused on creating lifelong champions for MNU, and that starts by providing quality programming that our alums want or need.
Was there something that you did as you came into the role? Maybe are you a graduate of MNU?
Yeah, I'm a double alum. I actually got my undergraduate degree. In 1990. I'm old. And then I came back for my MBA here. And I'm working on my doctorate at one of our sister schools in Oklahoma City.
6.
Yeah, in my
doctoral.
I don't know how many times I've probably told myself this was insane. In fact, when I moved over to University of Communications, I started my doctorate like within like 10 days of that. And I just about 2 months in, I'm like, this is stupid. What am I doing to myself? But my doctorate is focused on alumni engagement. Like I said, it's my passion. And so
Cool.
it's been one of the things that's kind of kept me focused on what's going on the alumni side of the house.
So culturally, having been a student there, you knew resources weren't going to be flowing for this, and you take the role. Was there a mindset shift that you had to make, or a tactic that you employed that you said, I'm going to use this to get through this?
Yeah, Chris, really, for me, it's been two things, actually. I know it's going to sound cliche, two cliches coming at you, but work harder, not smarter is the first one. I've been described as a best practices sponge. And as a lifelong learner, I've tried to apply what I'm learning, whether it's from a podcast that I'm listening to, a book I'm reading, a video I'm watching. And I'm actually part of a learning organization here. We do a lot of how do we get better, like continuous improvement kind of things, Six Sigma kinds of things. My second thing is really like many hands make lighter work. I have a super amazing alumni council, and they are all in helping us achieve our engagement goals. I got 33 people on my council, and they are really active.
I want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say work smarter, not harder, or work harder, not smarter?
Smarter, not harder. Yeah.
I wasn't sure because I'm thinking you probably work pretty hard.
I am a hard worker. My weeks are long weeks. When you have a 60-40 split like I do, it doesn't mean you have a 40-hour week. And everybody who's in alumni or any kind of engagement profession knows 40 hours is like, what's that? It's more like a 50 or a 55, 60 range kind of week that you normally have. And in the summer, it's even more, it seems like it should be more downtime, but it's actually even more active for folks.
Do you have staff on the communication side?
Yeah, I have a really talented team. We actually have 4 staff members on there. I got to built around one of our cornerstone of our team. She'd been on our staff for 35 years. I literally told her when the move was coming, I said, you're my cornerstone, because she has all this institutional knowledge. And I really wanted to make sure, we kind of utilized her strength sets and her skill set. And then we moved a couple pieces around. We added a couple pieces, and we have a really talented shop that's just kicking butt.
Give your cornerstone a shot.
Hey, her name's Carol Best, and she is the best. Yeah.
Very cool. So I mentioned before, there are times where being in a small shop could be an advantage, right? You have that ability to innovate and be more agile. Is there a story you can share, an example where you were able to do that? Success.
Yeah. I've never worked at a larger institution. So, I imagine people think we have fewer levels of bureaucracy. We still have bureaucracy. We got our own sets of bureaucracy, but most of our work is in a centralized office. So we don't have to build consensus across a bunch of academic units. I also work for a senior vice president who just encourages me. And so one of the things is, I'm just going to shout out to Ryan Catherwood right now. Ryan was one of the faculty members at a case conference that I attended very early in my tenure, in my alumni tenure in 2019. And he talked about repurposing content. He's like, this is a work smarter, not harder kind of idea, right? And so we created this initiative called We Love Alums Week. We love alums every day, right? But we did this, we picked a week of the year, and we just kind of built, like every day on social media, we do a prompt, and then people comment. And the coolest thing about it is a lot of times they comment to each other, and it's kind of like they reconnect down in the comments section. So it's crazy. But one of the things we did, we had the Wednesday prompt is Wisdom Wednesday, and we asked them, hey, what would you tell your graduating self about, what advice would you give your graduating self? And we took a lot of the best comments like that, and we turned them into quotes that we could put in the diploma inserts, right? So students walk across the stage, they get a diploma cover, they open it up, and there's nothing in there. There's no diploma, but we have like an alumni quote there, and we picked 15 of them, and we kind of rotated them. So if you're standing next to somebody, you open it up and you look at the person next to there, it's something different, right? That's only 15 quotes. And even if somebody's peeking over your shoulder, the chances that they're going to have the same quote are really, really small. So, but we use that and we try to do something like that. This next year, we asked them to give advice to their freshman self. And we're going to be putting cards in all of our freshman dorms when our freshmen come in the fall. And so they have something like, hey, here's something that an alum who's been exactly where you are would have told themselves as their 18 or 18-year-old self. So we try to repurpose that content. Again, it's a work harder, not smart. Yeah, a work smarter, not harder kind of mentality.
I bet you there are a bunch of people who are watching this right now and we'll listen to it later who are writing down those two ideas, and we'll take those and steal those, copy and steal everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what CASE stands for.
Well, and by the way, Kim and Fatih.
Yeah, I remember Kim. It was. I still have contact with all the people on all that faculty, that group. It was real formative for me. Yep.
Pete, let's talk a little bit about the communications component of your work. You also are leading the university's primary marketing and communications efforts, right? Not just for advancement, of course, but for the entire institution, designed to drive applications and enrollment and highlight the student experience. First of all, let's talk a little bit what that's been like, but then also talk a little bit about what it's helped you learn about alumni engagement, right? And how that's helped you do your job better.
Yeah, I feel like, so when I came on, the team had a lot of bumps and bruises. They'd been through a pretty rough spot there. And when about 6 months in, we had the team we needed and we started really getting after it. And that first year, I really had to focus on building that team and that team culture. We had amazing people. They just needed to feel like they were all rowing together and doing something amazing. The cool thing is we've kind of built campus trust back in this function, and it's allowed us to reach out to everybody across campus. I'd already built partnerships across campus, and I know we can talk about that at a different time of the podcast, but it's an institutional asset now, which it needs to be. And for me, we basically turned a corner. Now that I'm leading the university communications team, it's allowed me to bring alumni projects to this super talented team. And I don't have to do it myself, all the time. I still manage some of our social media channels, but I use a lot of content that we're developing for, the mothership social media channels. And what's really happening is that the result is much more engaging content for my newsletters, for our social media channels, even our alumni magazine. So it's just some really great stuff across the board. And so merging those things are really good. I have to be really careful not to call my card all the time and say, hey, I want this alumni project to go to the top of the heap, because we have so many important stakeholders across campus. But now it's one of the many important stakeholders. So
I think people are feeling less bad for you, Pete, because you started off by saying 0.4, 0.6, I'm all by myself. But now you have other people helping you. Come on.
Yeah, man. I do have a good team. I mean, and you guys know across, a lot of your Alumless groups. And I think of Sam Frost at Ohio State where she talked about the alumni journey and how they're employing engagement across all of their advancement shop. And for us, a lot of our alums are in the aware learning stage. A giant portion of them.
Sure.
And most institutions, that's where they are. So that's why communications is so important for that phase. And so we're starting to move our folks closer to taking their first step or another step with the university. So being here is not a bad thing. I bet there's a lot of alumni directors who wish they could run their marketing shop.
Their own numbers, so to speak.
Exactly right.
I was going to say, it's a huge advantage to be able to call your own number.
It can be. I don't do it very often because I know I'm trying to be humble with the opportunity, but we also know that we have even more important stakeholders. We're a mostly tuition-based revenue model. And so our admissions teams get first dibs on almost everything, and almost all their projects go to the top of the heap. So I do have to be patient with my stuff, but we do have a super talented team, and it's awesome to work with them, and I'm proud to be their leader. So it's really cool.
Well, maybe you could actually fill that in a little bit more, because I feel like you have a direct line to how the storytelling decisions get made around admissions and enrollment. And what have you learned about how the admissions pipeline kind of works from a communication standpoint, and maybe how it intersects with alumni?
Right. So yeah, that was one of the first things I needed to learn enrollment marketing like super fast. But one of the things I've learned is I reach out to a lot of people who are experts in the industry. And I actually hired an executive coach out of my back pocket and said, I need you to spin me up pretty quickly on enrollment marketing. And I had a guy named Bart Kaler who he mentored me basically for about 6 months and just helped me understand, the whole admissions funnel. It's different on the professional and graduate side a little bit, but similar milestones is just a different order of things a lot of times. But bringing our alumni engagement into the admissions process, one of our volunteer opportunities is an admissions advocate. And we've stolen an idea from Lindsay Crum when she was at University of Northern Colorado and trying to just write cards and get some impact out that way. Invite them. We haven't got to the point where we've had alums who reach out to admitted students and encourage them to take the next step or something like that. But we're getting to that point, and I think that's the next frontier for our admissions advocates. Yeah.
And I suppose your position overseeing marketing communications makes that potential all the more reasonable as a good next step, and exciting opportunities for you. Right. Chris, go ahead. Did you want to chime in there?
I want to just throw in big kudos. You started this less than 2 years ago. You took over that shop, which was struggling a little bit. And here we are less than 2 years later, and you got, I think, a pretty high function. It says something about your leadership. Kudos to you.
Thanks, man. It's I like to say when people are like, wow, you guys are doing so great. I like to tell them this team is amazing and they're super talented. And it always makes me smile when we do a little show and tell or they're asking about some need. And I think they're asking for the moon. And we change something on the website, like in front of them. And they look at it like we just did the biggest magic act in the world. I just smiled, one, because I'm super proud of my team and what they do. And I'm just proud. It's like a deposit in the love bank, I know it helps us with our trust and helps people feel better and more confident that when they ask us to get something done, it's going to get done not only on time, but it's going to be done great.
Chris, a lot of the themes that Pete's been mentioning sort of resonate and point towards successful leadership. When you've worked with smaller teams kind of that same size, or maybe even a bit bigger, what are some of the things that you notice about successful leaders that are trying to help small shops utilize their scarce resources?
I referenced it in my comment to Pete there, is that leadership is key. I mean, I 100% believe and agree that you have great staff, but great staff with a bad leader won't produce what happens when you put a good leader in the equation. And you can get, so my first answer to your question, Ryan, is having a clear vision for what we want to accomplish, articulating that vision and sticking to that vision on a consistent basis is what leadership, I think, is really all about. And it's clear you've done that on the communication side. You've led the alumni team amazingly, Pete. I mean, what you've done with you and you and you.
Yeah. Hey, man, I got to tell you, my alumni staff is pretty unruly.
Well, I do want to talk about that for a second because we're okay on time here, Ryan. Usually behind me, I have a college pennant I hang up, but today I hung my Eagles helmet and Eagles hat. So the one quality you have to be a strong leader is you cannot be a Kansas City Chiefs fan. So I don't know how you've bucked that trend, but it's been amazing. I'm teasing. I had to give you a little.
But you had to needle it because you had to poke the bear back, didn't you?
Because you poked me on every single freaking chat you jumped in on. You would say, "Home of the Kansas City Chiefs."
Usually it was MidAmerica Nazarene University in suburban Kansas City, home of the world champion Chiefs. And then it is funny, though, people who know me in the smaller institution networks, they're like, "You just got to call out on Alumless." I go, "I just poked the bear." So yeah, no, but I know
several Chiefs fans, and to a person. Like if it was the Eagles who got taken to the woodshed like you guys were, we would all be like ornery and grumpy. You guys have been so polite and cordial and just sort of took your medicine and been really cool about it. So kudos to you and your fan base.
Just a little different than a Cowboys fan, right?
Exactly. I'll put us back on task here, Ryan. So you mentioned you trust yourself on the alumni. You have 4 great people on the marketing team. You've leveraged your board.
Yeah,
I think that's a really smart. But one of the other key things we look at in any scenario, large or small, as some folks have been saying in the chat, is partnerships on campus. You got to have some crucial connections there. And the fact that you went there and you worked there for so many years, what are some of the ones that you've leveraged and that are working for you?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a natural bridge builder. I think a lot of alumni directors are just naturally relational, right? But when I started as the director of annual giving, I wanted to make sure that folks across campus understood that we were an asset that they could call on, a resource, And when crowdfunding just started emerging in the late teens, we would do like Giving Tuesday, we would do projects for people, and they're like, oh, wow, you can help me move the needle. Yeah. You can help me extend my budget. So I built a lot of street cred through that initiative. And then when I became the alumni director, I'm like, hey, how can alums come in and help you in your program area or your office or your department or whatever? And so that just happened pretty easily. And I've built bridges all across campus. And so one of my favorite examples is we do a thing called the Meeting of the Minds. It's really about homecoming because so many people touch homecoming weekend here at our institution. So I brought athletics, admissions, our traditional admissions folks do a big visit weekend, brought our student government folks in, brought our fine arts people because it's a big fine arts production during the weekend as well, had our events staff there. And we all I just told them, I said, hey, this is going to be a dance. I want to make sure that we don't step on each other's toes. And let's just make sure we make this happen. And I get done with this meeting and my AVP comes in and she goes, that might be the first time I've ever seen all those people, but actually decide to work together to do something special. And the partner, she's like, that hasn't happened before, Pete. And so I say, hey, man, we've got higher ed's got too many things battling against it. We can't be battling each other. So time is too short. A life is too short for us to just be fighting each other for scarce resources. We need to pool our resources and do something great.
Yeah. There's communication, there's coordination, there's collaboration, then there's partnership and integration. And you took it all the way down to that higher level of getting those people together and getting them on the same page. That's part of leadership. Well done.
Thanks, man.
And let's wrap it up. Who do we got coming up? We got a couple cool guests coming up on the show.
Yeah, excited about Holman Chin. Next week is our guest on Alumless World. He's the Executive Director of Development for INSEAD. He lives over in Singapore. Awesome, really a global university they've got their main campus in Fontainebleau, France. They've got their Singapore office, right? They've got an office, I think they have in Vienna as well. And so it's a truly a global.
INSEAD. So INSEAD, like we think of the best business schools in the U.S., Harvard, Penn, Wharton, Stanford, whatever. I'm going to get in trouble for saying the ones I did.
Say some more. They're going to get you in trouble.
I'm going to get in big trouble. But INSEAD is that in Europe, and they're in France. Fontainebleau, France is south of Paris. It's an amazing institution. So I'm psyched we have Holman on.
Yeah, a student population that's multilingual, right?
Oh, yeah.
And global endeavors. They're trying to figure out crypto as a gift, currency, and I feel like it was a really interesting conversation. And then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have Matt James, who's the Vice President of Alumni Relations at Marshall University, on the show, which will be a good one.
We are Marshall.
Well, Pete, thank you so much for being on Alumless. We're going to head over to another StreamYard room interface to record our bonus segment with you. And those of you who are listening to us by podcast, we'll be back after the break. But for those of you who are tuning in by LinkedIn, thank you so much for making time for us. And we'll be back in your feed in 2 weeks' time. Next week for Alumless World, 2 weeks for Alumless.
All right. Thanks again, Pete. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.